Nolan Arenado will not win a Gold Glove this year, plus a trade scenario for the White Sox Dylan Cease on today's episode of Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafford, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan, and I'm your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us in places like iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcast, as well as on YouTube. If you're going to join us there, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. That way you're interacting with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. The Rawlings company that does the Gold Gloves announced who the Gold Glove winners, or I shouldn't say winners, but finalists are going to be in both the National League and the American League. And there was a certain name that was missing from the list at third base in the National League, and that was our very own Nolan Arenado. Now, Nolan Arenado is arguably one of the greatest defensive third basemen in the history of the game. I'm sure you can make an argument. I believe he is, but I'm sure you can make an argument that he's not. I'm sure somebody could come up with something. But the guy had won the NL Gold Glove at third base in every single season that he's been a Major League Baseball player. He's never lost it, ever. The last person to win the Gold Glove at third base in the National League was in 2012 when Jase Medical won it. That's right. Jase Medical won it with the San Diego Padres. 10 straight Gold Gloves by Nato. That actually tied Seattle Mariners legend Ichiro Suzuki for the most ever to begin a career. The only third baseman to win more Gold Gloves than Nolan Arenado was the late, great Brooks Robinson with the Baltimore Orioles. He won 16. Talk about bonkers. 16? Mike Schmidt is next on the list from the Phillies, along with Nato at 10 in a row. You got Cardinals Hall of Famer Scott Rowland in next with 8. And then we trickle on down the line. But those are the big names right there. So it's a big deal that Nolan Arenado is not a finalist and is not going to win the Gold Glove this year. We all know that Nolan Arenado had a down season. The Cardinals as a whole had a down season. It was a tough year for everybody involved. A lot of this had to do with injuries to numerous players, but Arenado was dealing with some things as well. So Katie Wu over at The Athletic broke down some of the stats for Nato here in the 2023 season, saying that this year was arguably the worst defensive year of Arenado's career. The 32-year-old spent the first half of the season experiencing dead arm for the first time before being plagued with back spasms over the final 2 months. Those impairments severely impacted his range and his throwing accuracy, and the stats back that up. Arenado registered just 5 outs above average, OAA. You're going to hear that term a couple of times here, so just be aware. So he registered just 5 outs above average and a shocking 1 defensive run saved, which is DRS, both career lows. But just how far did Arenado slide defensively? Arenado had recorded at least 10 OAA, once again, outs above average, every year dating back to 2016, with the COVID-19 shortened 2020 season aside. Before this season, his lowest full season OAA was 10, while his highest came at 22 back in 2019. So 5 is quite a dip. Arenado entered this season with 155 career defensive runs saved, with his lowest mark coming at 6 in 2021. He had recorded at least 12 DRS every other year of his career, including 19 in 2022. So back to this dead arm thing, which bothered him in the first half of the season. He talked about this with Katie Wu in August. And here's what Nato actually said about it at that time. Okay. He said, I feel like it was the first time I've ever had dead arm. I don't know what it was. In the first half, I would do these plays where I throw off my back foot and the runner would beat it out. Last year, I would get him out. This year, I'm not. Nato credited the Cardinals medical staff for getting him back on track at the time, saying, and I want to point that out because usually fans tend to bash on the Cardinals medical staff or like, why is everybody hurt all the time? And why don't they come back the same way? And, we crush them. And Nato actually credits the medical staff for fixing him this year, saying, quote, I've been doing a throwing program with heavy balls and light balls, trying to get my arm strength back. And I feel like I've done that in the second half, and it's finally catching up. Now I get to trust in my arm a little more than I did in the first half. Now, Wu continues in her story saying that Arenado's defense trended upward to his usual standard in mid-July and early August, but the persistent back spasms that ended his season in mid-September likely prohibited him from advancing further. Arenado was placed on the injured list with 10 games remaining in the regular season, only the third IL designation of his career. It concluded what could be considered the most disappointing year of his career, especially factoring in the Cardinals' dismal performance in the standings. So, health was a big reason why you saw the drop-off of Nolan Arenado. Now, should we start worrying about this? Is this something, age 32, back problems over at third base? Should we start worrying about stuff like this? Well, Katie Wu said that the organization as a whole, the Cardinals organization, they're not overly concerned about any of this stuff. They're not concerned about his injuries. They're not concerned about his down year. And as I mentioned yesterday, I'm kind of curious what a newly motivated Nolan Arenado might look like in the spring when hopefully the Cardinals have added a few more pitchers to the team to get them back on track in 2024. As motivated as Arenado is normally, which is, supreme levels of intensity as far as how he goes about his work and how he goes about playing the game. He's got something to prove now this year. And that's a good thing if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm very excited to see what he's going to do next year, especially if the pieces come in around him and everybody's got those good vibes coming into spring training. One of the pitchers that has been mentioned that might be somebody the Cardinals could chase after is the Chicago White Sox Dylan Cease. And today I thought I'd throw out a trade proposal for the Chicago Ace and see just kind of what everybody thinks about it. Heads up, it hurts a little bit. It's a tough trade. So I'm going to have that for you coming up next here on Locked On Cardinals. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers are getting $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Okay, so if you're already on FanDuel, good for you. Smart move. I'm there with you. But if you haven't decided on whether or not you want to get into, betting on games and such, FanDuel is the place to be. And they're hooking you up $200 on bonus bets, win or lose. So you put $5 down. Say you bet on last night's game, last night's NFL game, and you bet on the Saints and they lost. You would still get $200 in bonus bets from FanDuel. That's what they're doing for you. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action. The app is very easy to use, and they've got a wide arrangement and range of betting options that include things like spreads, obviously, player props. People love those kind of bets. Over-unders is a big deal. So much more available to you. Week 7 of the NFL got started last night, and sadly, my plan of betting the under and the Saints was a bad one, man. The Saints and Jags combined for 55 points on Thursday. So that was way over the under-over, which I think it ended at like 42 or 42 and a half, somewhere in there. Trevor Lawrence looked pretty good considering the knee injury. Sorry about the bad advice. I've been pretty good so far this year. Sorry about the bad advice. But the great thing is you got more football this weekend. I'm feeling the Seahawks. This week at home against the Cardinals. Seahawks 7.5-point favorites as of the time of this recording. Always love their crowd. Always love the energy there. The Cardinals, although have been putting up a good fight, man, that's a tough place to play. And I just like it. So that's what I'm leaning towards this week. Do what you need to do. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. You can leave comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter anytime you want. Your feedback is always welcome and encouraged. Dylan Cease is a name that the Cardinal fans, I should say, they've been pretty interested in over, I would say, the last year and a half. Drafted in the 6th round by the Cubs in 2014, had an elbow injury his senior year of high school before he actually ended up getting drafted by the Cubs. Had to get Tommy John surgery after he signed, like just boom, right out the gate. So he's already had that done. Then they ended up trading him to the White Sox along with Eloy Jimenez and a couple of other guys in the deal for Jose Quintana. And that was back in 2017. Had a couple of good years in the minor leagues, got called up to the majors in July of 2019, and he ended up finishing the season with a 4-7 record. This is his first year, by the way. 4-7 record, 5.79 ERA in 73 innings. Nothing special. His average of 9.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, though, that was good. That was the highest in White Sox history by a rookie with minimum 10 starts. His fastball was coming in 96.6, reaching triple digits at certain times. So you saw the talent that was there. We get the COVID year next in 2020. He's 5-4, ERA of 4.01. So that's improvement. Then in 2021, things improve even more. He goes to another level, 13-7, 3.91 ERA in 32 starts. He throws 165 and 2/3 innings. He strikes out 226 hitters along the way. That is something that you like. And then in 2022, it gets even better. It gets even better, man. He pops to another level, going 14-8, 2.20 ERA. Once again, 32 starts, so he's healthy. Strikes out 227 hitters in 184 innings. So strikeouts per 9 went down, but his numbers overall were better. He led the league in walks. That was something that you had to be kind of weary of. You saw that happen this year. Blake Snell led the league in walks, even though he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Could possibly win another Cy Young this year. Cease in 2022 ends up finishing second in the AL Cy Young voting, loses out to Justin Verlander of the Houston Astros. So then you come into this year, he's now 27 years old, and things regressed for Dylan. He fell to 7-9 on the year. The ERA was up to 4.58. Strikeouts were still strong, 214 over 177 innings. That was 5th in the American League and 8th overall in baseball, but the hits were way up, 172 of them compared to his previous 2 seasons, which were his best seasons, where he gave up 139 and then only 126. So 172 was a quite a large number there. Ended up walking 79 hitters again, which was second in the league, only to fellow White Sox pitcher Michael Kopech. Trade deadline rolled around this year, and many speculated that the White Sox were going to move Cease. They're like, all right, he's a big piece. They're clearly starting to rebuild again, and he's got 2 years of control left before becoming a free agent. People are going to want him. And I'm sure the White Sox fielded tons and tons of calls, like tons of calls. Problem is that nothing really blew them away. At least that's what we were told. Like nothing really blew them away. They weren't overly excited about anything that they saw. So what they ended up doing was not trading him at all. They said, you know what? We're going to hang on to him. We don't really have any interest in trading him. They also mentioned Luis Robert Jr., another guy that people would be interested in. I remember talking to my buddy who's a White Sox fan, and I was like, what do you think it would say? And this is when Robert was struggling. Like he was not doing well at all. And I asked him, I was like, what do you think it'd take to get Robert? And he's like, I don't know, man. We're kind of getting sick of him. And then he just went bonkers. Remember, he just went bonkers. And so they took him off the market. They didn't have any interest in trading Cease or Robert Jr. And now people are wondering if maybe, something gets done this offseason instead. Maybe because the packages that were being offered to the White Sox weren't so good at the deadline, that maybe here in the offseason, after teams can reassess what they're doing with their own rosters, that maybe they'll get a better deal and perhaps Cease could get moved. I still think they hang on to Robert Jr. I don't know why you'd want to get rid of that guy, but That's where we're at. That's why we are where we are right now, is we're trying to figure out exactly what it would take to pull Dylan Cease out of there. Sorry, I'm trying to load this picture of our. Here we go. I got to load up the trade for you real quick. So, because of this, I decided to hop on over to baseballtradevalues.com, and I understand that site's kind of goofy, but it's fun. This is entertaining. We're just talking about fake trades, really, that could happen. And I decided to come up with a mix of players that might be good enough to swap to Chicago for his services. Now, be warned that this trade will not be cheap because Dylan Cease has a median value on this website of 50.5, which is very, very high. Okay, that's pretty high. And it's because of the years of control that he still has, and of course, his skill set. You know, this year may have been a down year, but at the same time, he's still got the arsenal to strike out a lot of people. And odds are, at least these guys are betting on that, his numbers will come back to where we saw them before this year. You know, people aren't expecting him to regress even more. So, just based on the values from the website, here's what I put together as a possible, I stress, possible trade idea. Don't get bent out of shape when you see this. Here we go. YouTube, you can see it on the screen. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, I'll break it down for you. Dylan Cease from the White Sox in exchange for Brendan Donovan, Dylan Carlson, Matthew Liberatore, and former first-round pick in 2021, Michael McGreevy. First thing you're going to say is, and I know you guys, you're going to say, hell no. That is way too much. And yes, it is a lot. I agree. But the White Sox are not taking Tyler O'Neill, Alec Burleson, Lucan Baker, Dakota Hudson. They're not going to take that package for Dylan Cease. It's not going to happen. You keep telling yourselves that. And if you want to, live in that fantasy world of that being a good trade, but it's not realistic. That is fantasy. That's not going to get it done. We've mentioned time and time again that someone like Donovan, Edman, or Gorman would probably have to go in a deal for a top of the rotation pitcher. It's just inevitable. Those are the guys people are going to want from you. They're going to ask for Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn, and the Cardinals are going to politely say, no, thank you. But these other guys, there's somebody that you have to think about moving if you want this level of a pitcher. Donovan being under control through 2027, the ability to play multiple positions, his offensive capabilities as a left-handed hitter, make him someone that people would really, really want. The elbow injury, I'm sure he's going to be fine. People will have concerns about that, but Donovan's a very good ball player. He's very good at pretty much everything he does. What does he lack? Speed, really? He got his power up this year. Defense, not quite as good as the previous year, but you love him. Dylan Carlson, as much as I'd rather swap out Tyler O'Neill, the White Sox, if they're going to have a choice here, probably going to prefer DC because he's younger than O'Neill. He's under control for 3 more years. He can play all 3 outfield positions, and he's a switch hitter. He just has to be able to stay healthy. Matthew Liberatore, former first rounder, potential is the word that we've heard over and over with him. We saw glimpses of this last year, and maybe he is on the verge of finally living up to that potential. But the Sox will want some pitching in return for Cease, and Libby has the highest value here. And then the final little cherry on top here, just to kind of push things over, is Michael McGreevy, because, again, the Sox are not going to want guys like Connor Thomas. That's just not who they're going to ask for. They're going to want guys who have a high pedigree, like a former first-round pick. He was 11-6 this year at Memphis, 4.49 ERA. What worries me about McGreevy is the fact that he lacks strikeout stuff. Had 107 Ks and 134 in the third innings this past year. That's not good. That is not what you're looking for in this day and age. But former first-round pick, maybe it's somebody the White Sox are like, we could do something with this. Or maybe they ask for somebody else. Maybe they ask for like a Cooper Jerpy, something like that. And you've just added a solid group of young pitchers at the trade deadline. So trading from your pile that you have, it makes sense. It makes sense. So just looking at this from the Cardinals side, I know it's a lot to give up. When I was putting this together, I'm like, oh boy. But again, you gotta give to get. Dylan Cease is not some number 4 guy. He's a number 1 type of pitcher. You want a number 1 type of pitcher, you got to give up a number 1 type of package. And I know the baseball trade value side isn't exact science, but it's a fun tool to use. And unless you're giving up Gorman, Newbar, or Walker in a deal, it's going to take multiple solid pieces to get the value to add up to where it would need to be. So if you're looking at it, the final values here, as I mentioned, that Cease worth 50.50 by himself. The White Sox total value with all those guys together, Carlson, Donovan, Liberatore, McGreevy, 52.40. So a little bit higher, but it's going to take something to get this guy out of Chicago. So there you have it. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this one? Obviously, people are going to say, no, too much, not trading Donovan. I get that. But what do you think? Would you spend this one? Would you spend this one? If you could get Dylan Cease for that grouping, would you be okay with that? Would you be okay to move on from Donovan? I mean, you still got Tommy Edman, Thomas Jase, Mason Wynn, Nolan Gorman. You still got them. And I mentioned the other day, look at some other outfielders that might be out there too if you're worried about filling out the depth in the outfield. So what do you think? Good? Bad? No thank you? Try again? Good starting point? JD, quit drinking in the morning? You tell me. Again, this is for fun discussions, so don't get too upset in the comments section, but let me know your thoughts. Curious about them. We'll revisit them in a future episode here soon. The MLB playoffs continued yesterday. Going to recap everything that went down because here we go. All of a sudden, we got a couple of series here, so we'll do that next on Locked On Cardinals. You've been hearing me talk about bird dogs since the spring, and a lot of you have jumped on board, picked up some of those game-changing shorts for yourselves, and I'm sure you're loving them just like I do. For those who have not yet, come on in. Come in close. Let's talk about this for a minute because I wear these shorts for all occasions, because that's how nice they look and that's how comfortable they are. You want to go shopping with the wife? She's going to make you do it this weekend, right? You know she is. Put them on. You'll love it. Got to go to lunch or dinner with the family? Perfect. They look great. You have to go watch your kids do something. They got band practice. They got cheerleading practice, soccer, football, whatever they're doing this fall. Put them on. They look cool. Going golfing with the boys. Perfect. That's my favorite thing to do in my bird dogs. And there's a couple of different reasons why. First off, they fit better than those other brands. They're not restricting. They're not stiff. They move with you. They've got the cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it's stretchy. It's stretchy, which is the best part about them. Gives you that way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement where you're just kind of like, you don't want to do that. That's so fun. If you're a sweatier person, Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric. Keeps you cool, keeps you dry, keeps you from having those embarrassing stains in the places that you don't want those hurt. They're great. I love them. I think you're going to love them too. Head on over to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB and enter the promo code LockedOnMLB. That's it. Do that at checkout. You're going to get a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. And you can use that for when you're working out on the golf course, whatever you need it. Playing video games and getting hydrated. You can do it that way too. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. Don't look now. Don't look now, baseball fans, but we got some series going on in the championship series. ALCS, NLCS, what looked like they could be blowouts and sweeps throughout. All of a sudden, we got competition. We got drama. We'll start in the ALCS where the Rangers jumped out to that 2-0 lead in the series. And I'm feeling good about myself because I'm the one that said Rangers World Series this year. That was my pick. 2-0 lead. They win both games in Houston. Heading back to Globe Life Field. What do you know? Max Scherzer is ready to pitch. Now you got Mad Max on the mound. Everything's going in their way, right? Defending champion Astros had other ideas. Game 3. They go up against Scherzer, who was coming back from the injury. Got him for 5 runs in just 4 innings, including a Jose Altuve home run. Former Cardinal Chris Stratton, damn glad to meet you, gives up 2 runs in an inning of work. Astros take that one 8-5. Then on Thursday, they jump on them early. 3-0 lead on starter Andrew Heaney. The Rangers come back. They tie it up in the third, but immediately the Astros answer. They get 4 thanks to a 3-run shot by Jose Abreu. He used to never look back after that. They crushed the Rangers 10-3. That series is now evened up at 2 games apiece, essentially making this a best-of-3 series. And I know people don't like this guy. I get that. But you got to appreciate Jose Altuve. I mean, is there 3 hits? He had 3 more hits in last night's game, giving him 10 career 3-hit games just in the postseason, tying him for 3rd all time. I mean, there's not a more unassuming player in the league, is there? I mean, 5'6", 165 pounds, yet he's a stud. Cheating scandal aside, I'm not saying you have to like anybody on the Astros who were a part of that. I'm not saying you should respect him. I'm just saying you got to admit, Jose Altuve is pretty good. Dude's a beast. I draft him every year in fantasy because nobody wants to take him because everybody hates him. And I take advantage of that. And every year, that dude comes through. Game 5 will be the early game again tonight between those two, between the Rangers and the Astros. Back to the aces for both teams. Justin Verlander for Houston against former Cardinal Jordan Montgomery. Will be on the mound again tonight. Monty got the best of Verlander in game 1 as the Rangers shut out the Astros 2-0. We'll see if, Monty can fare better or worse tonight after seeing the same lineup a second time around, which is always a little more difficult. Then we head over to the NLCS with the Phillies up 2-0 after trouncing the Snakes in game 2. Series shifted to Arizona, and we had a pitcher's duel in game 3. Rookie right-hander Brandon Pfaadt spends 5 2/3 scoreless innings against the very potent Phillies lineup, who was just hitting tank shots in Philly. He strikes out 9 of them, just baffles them for 5 2/3 innings. And then when Torey Lovullo comes out to remove him from the game, the fans in Arizona booed him. They booed him because they're like, no, don't screw this up. But he's got a nice little bullpen out there as well. So he knew what he was doing. On the other side, Ranger Suarez was also up to the task. He goes 5 1/3 shutout innings of his own with 7. So it was up to the bullpens to bring it home. Phillies get 1 in the 7th. Diamondbacks answer right back. Then in the bottom of the 9th, it was Ketel Marte delivering the walk-off RBI single, which was pretty cool to see. I mean, anytime you see something like that, crowd goes bonkers, Did it against Phillies closer Craig Kimbrell. It was his 3rd hit of the day. Lovullo moved him up in the order. He moved Corbin Carroll down to number 2, Marte to number 1, and it paid off. Arizona wins this one 2-1. It was Arizona's first NLCS win since 2001 when they won the title against the Yankees. 2-1 series now. Now, if you're Philly, you're like, all right, it's 1 game. We're a better team here, but Arizona has already upset the Brewers, the Dodgers. They're not afraid of Philadelphia, even though they got killed in game 2. So they made the announcement. They're not going to be pushing Zach Gallen up on short rest for game 4. Instead, they're going to go with the bullpen game. Joe Mantiply will get the start against lefty Christopher Sanchez for Philadelphia. That dude hasn't pitched in nearly a month. Kind of funny how the postseason turns out where Joe Mantiply against Christopher Sanchez. Like, how did we get here? But that's where we are. And that'll be the late game tonight, in case you're wondering. So there you go. That's what's going on in the playoffs. That's what's going on with the Cardinals. Again, thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, do me a solid. Give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason, and I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.